didn't expect to be in the food service industry for as long as I have, but always had an interest in cooking, always had an interest in, just, doing a good service and a good product for guests. And so as I came up through this company and with the school and then on to college, the company really nurtured that, and allowed me an opportunity to grow within that in this company. So it's very very humbling to hear that bio that our PR team put together for us. That kind of some of the stuff that I've been fortunate enough to be with. So that being said, as I've been in the company, we've always had a focus on sustainability in general, and some years that focus has kind of ebbed and flowed a little bit. The normal stuff that everybody does, like recycle cardboard, trying to recycle plastic and get things out of the waste stream initially. But one of the things that we started to do about 10-15 years ago was reduction, and that's kind of one of the on Michelle's slide, had source reduction. So we're a waste producer. Every business is, and we recognize that. And one of the things that we initially started with is how can we reduce waste in general. And with that was some just really adopting into our park. And there's a lot of folks on here from this area, so you're familiar with the theme park, but using things like from trying to be so in theme that we don't show things like dispensers, and adopting those into our food service and our operations. So things like cutlery dispensers, you don't think about those things. They're very natural, but when we started using dispensers versus just having pre-wrapped stuff in a basket, we reduced our waste on cutlery and napkins by 2/3, because guests, when they're out here on vacation or enjoying their day, they really don't think about it as much. They're on vacation, they're a break from everything, and so they grab a handful of this and grab a handful of that, maybe use half of it if you're lucky, and the rest of it they end up tossing in the trash. So that was our initial our push was that reduction, and as we've continued through up until 2020, we started doing a little bit of a composting, with eliminating all foam product, and being able to change those over to compostable items. And we started doing initially a program with a local high school, a composting program that took our food waste, and they did something with some kids over at Reed Spring, and they had a composter over there that they would take our food waste in, and then that program changed and kind of lost touch, and then unfortunately 2020 happened, and the wheels kind of fell off the bus for about 18 months to 2 years, and just trying to get items, disposables, without having to resort to foam and stuff like that became a huge challenge. Plus the precautions we initially took that just increased our amount of disposables. So with that, going into this year, we really wanted to regain that focus of sustainability, and during 2020, we'd started talking with Hanson's Tree Service about doing our composting back then, and that got put on pause. But we've regained that this year, and now we are pulling some of our food waste off the park. We have a big commissary kitchen where we produce food for the different restaurants throughout the park. And they create amount of food waste, just from their production and just from throughout the course of business. But probably one of the biggest, the biggest drivers of food waste that gets, I would say, left on the plate is our buffets. Buffets are one where people go in, their eyes are bigger than their stomach, and they'll fill their plates, go to their table, and then they leave a significant amount of food waste behind. And so in this same building, we converted all of our any kind of straws, napkins, into compostable products that we're able to use through there, so that one, we can eliminate any non-compostables from hopefully getting into that compost stream. And we've been able to been very successful. This building this structure probably represents about 10% of the overall food waste throughout the park that's being diverted into the compostable dumpsters, and that we're transferring off to the Hansons, that they're mixing with their tree and other kind of organic matter to do the compost. So as we've continued to grow this, we're harvesting and pumpkin season. One of the things that when you have a festival like this is you have a lot of pumpkins on park, and pumpkins tend to go bad. So we have about 10,000 or 5,000 pumpkins on park, and so as those get through this festival that we're going to wrap up on Saturday, we've been diverting all of those into the compost stream as well. So it's things that you may not think about with food waste. It's more of a decor thing, but it's something that we want to deal with in a responsible way. So we've been able to continue with that. The other thing, as we I like your term just from a source reduction. We've also looked at our portioning of products out on park as well. It's kind of amazing, when we've got a crowd like we had this last weekend of about 22,000 people. We've got a lot of moving parts and pieces, and the training that we put into our teams to hopefully cut out any waste is one of those big areas that we look for, so that they're not having to prep and throw away a lot of scrap at the end of the day in the shop. We challenge our staff with reducing end of day items that we have on hand, so that we one, it's going in the landfill, but it's also money that's just going in the trash as well. So it's not really good for anybody. We really always put a focus with our shops and our operators to reduce that waste and eliminate when we can. And then there's times that we try to be creative. Our bakery, you mentioned something about a bakery. Our day-old cinnamon rolls, or that are left over the end of the day, cinnamon bread at Clarabelle's. That actually gets made into our bread pudding that we serve at Smokehouse, the barbecue restaurant that we created, opened in 2020. So all that gets changed and remade into a new item. So it's been one of those journeys that's not been perfect, but we continue to try to grow that each year. One of the things that really challenges us is in a way our guests, and are in that their behavior in throwing things away, just getting them sometimes to throw their plastic bottle into a recycle bin is difficult, or making sure that they're not throwing other things into that recycle bin. We actually hand sort our plastic collection to get other things out of it, that shouldn't be in the plastic recycling. So it becomes a little bit labor intense. And so, we'd like to try to figure out a way to continue to grow it throughout the park. But the challenge is just that, is how do we train our customers to care as much about diverting stuff out of the waste stream as what we're trying to do as well. So that's something we're talking about and we're working on, but we have not really cracked that that challenge yet. And then basically getting it to the right source. In our case, our partner with Hanson's Tree Service. So that's kind of an overview of everything. Michelle, I saw a hand go up a second ago. If somebody had a question now, or
that was a clap.
oh, okay, all right. So, but yeah. Anyway, so as we grow this program, we're continuing to look at those different ways to do it. So, like I said, I'm honored to be able to be here and talk a little bit about what we're doing. And Michelle, if there's questions or anything.
Well, thanks, Sam, so much. It's great to hear from you, especially from the hospitality industry, because we do hear, we talk about restaurants and grocery stores and hotels and event venues and things like that. And there are some really large, unique challenges that people in the service industry face when it comes to reducing waste. And you mentioned the buffet, and that's something that a lot of restaurants that I've spoken to over the years have mentioned. It's like, sometimes you just don't know. And then there's all this left over, and what do we do with it? So I appreciate you speaking to that. At this point, if anyone has any questions, feel free to unmute and jump in and ask Sam your burning questions.
Hi, Sam. This is Bill McKelvey from University of Missouri Extension. I'm based in Columbia, Missouri. I have a question. So on average, in terms of food waste, what percentage is created at the consumer side, and sort of what percentage is created, I guess, before it gets to the consumer? I guess I'm kind of wondering, in your operation, where does most of the food waste happen?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say largely, I would say 80% is by the consumer. It's a huge portion. That's what when I alluded to the buffets, or mentioned the buffet restaurants, that's one that's kind of the one-off that really magnifies when you see, when I walk out to the restaurant and I see they're bussing tables and I see plates of food just going in the trash, and it bothers me. It's a type of service that our guests want. So not walking away from it, but it's a lot of waste that goes unchecked, can go unchecked, but it's easily divertible for us because it's all in this facility that we're in, because it shares with our commissary kitchen and our all of our buffet restaurants. It's all contained within the same building, and it's really controllable in this environment. What's not as controllable is our walkaway restaurants and some of our other restaurants on Park, where the guests buy a certain item, and then may or may not finish that food waste, or for that food that turns into waste. So
thank you.
Hey, Emily from Food Rescue US. I'm curious, do you guys have any sort of food recovery donation programs? Do you work with any local organizations or local churches that would recover any of your usable food excess?
We have very little, to be honest. What we do sometimes is when we have something of significance, that we'll work with Ozarks Food Harvest in Springfield, and we'll donate those products with them. But really, that source reduction, and waste side of end of day kind of food left over off of a serving line or something, we really try to pare that down to the bare minimum. And in a lot of cases, we'll cook to order, in restaurants versus just having a whole line full up until closing time.
Hey, Sam, Robert Balick, horticulture field specialist in Southwest Missouri, Joplin area. And I've been to Silver Dollar City many times, and they have a spectacular horticulture display there with flowers and plants and trees and things. And so I'm curious, perhaps you mentioned this already, and I might have missed it because you were great talk, and I was taking lots of notes about things. But in the compost, when things are composted down, does that get incorporated back into the landscape at all there? Or how does that cycle work once it's composted?
Well, I know from that we had talked initially about pulling some of that back into the park. I don't know if our house and grounds team has started doing that yet, but it's being incorporated, I know, into compost and soil that Hanson's then sells to their customers.
I see. Okay. Thank you very much.
Any other questions for Sam?
Well, I do have another one because I'm
Sure, go right
I'm
ahead.
kind of known for asking questions. With the folks that buy things at the walkaway booths, do you see any potential in doing something there with containing food waste from those? Is there, you think some, I don't know if they're made aware of it and have a place to put food waste? Have you tried something like that or thought about doing anything like that?
We have not tried it. We have thought about it. And that's the collection part of it is what we are I guess challenged with. Our park, we're a 60-year-old park. And I won't say we're kind of landlocked on a 100-acre plot that the park operates out of. So, we have to work through adapting our, that where that trash and compost might go until the end of the day. And so, like I said, this process that we're doing with what we're currently doing is a start. And we're looking at ways to develop that in the future. And if there's an easy way, for collection and separation, suggestions out there, we're obviously open to it to try to figure that out.
Yeah, very good. Thank you.
I did want to ask you a question. You mentioned the how you use the cinnamon bread and the cinnamon rolls to make bread pudding, which is genius because for bread pudding you need kind of day old stale-ish bread in order to make a good bread pudding. I'm wondering if there are any other examples that you could share about how you kind of reuse food like that.
Well, I mean, so we have to be careful a little bit because we are very obviously food safe conscious as well. We try not to we don't do anything that would involve for example, I had an employee that said, well, we have a little bit of fried chicken left over at the end of the day. Why don't we take that and we can make a soup out of it. There's a lot of risk involved in that, in taking a product that was made for one other purpose and then especially when it's a protein item. So what we've focused on instead is not having things prepped. We work with a company called Taylor Farms. They're out of Tennessee that does a lot of our vegetable prep for us. So we'll buy in peppers already pre-sliced, pre-cut, fresh. And so they're taking their food waste and taking it to a composter and a facility as well. So we've taken some of that out of our hands. It saves us labor, obviously, but they specialize in, Taylor Farms does, vegetable prep for Walmart. That's the bag salads that you see in the grocery store. So they do a lot of different things for a lot of different companies across the United States, but we try to divert that out. But so when we get the product, we're really, we sell almost 100% of what we produce. So there's not a lot left on the table at the end of the day, because we try to be as efficient with it as possible.
That's great. Yeah, you're speaking to that source reduction piece, with really just trying to minimize what's left over to begin with. That way there's not a lot that you have to try to figure out after the case, which I think is fantastic. And that's kind of the goal to reducing food loss and waste.
Yeah, and the cinnamon rolls, I mean, obviously a bakery case, you can't sell anything if you don't have product. So, that's one that we always have extra, and we'll have end of day items. So, that was why we said, what can we do to take this and not just throw it in the trash every day. And we were for many years up until 2020. And, we saw a great opportunity with the new barbecue restaurant to create a dessert that honestly it's become our number one dessert on park. In the 2 years that we are in third year now that we've been open. So
that is fantastic. Any other questions for Sam? Well, thank you so much, Sam, for being here. It's great to hear what Silver Dollar City is doing to try to be to have less food waste and really working towards those sustainability goals. We will all look forward to seeing what's next on the horizon for Silver Dollar City. So thank you so much for being here today.
no, and thank you. I mean, we're always looking for ideas on how to improve what we do. So as we go through, if anybody has an idea out there or a new partnership that we can work with, we're always looking for opportunities.